They could look out the window and see downtown, but they've never been downtown. We're talking about from 44th and Cottage Grove. You can see it, but you don't think you can obtain it. So you have to teach what choice is. You have to ask people, what do you want to do? And think about, those are hard questions we have to ask people. What is it that you want to do? Everybody's not going to be a Michael Jordan. Everybody's not going to be a Walter Payton. What's your plan B?
Pick up my bags, I'll be free at last. Don't want to hear another word from my bum past. I graduate to know what's fate and what's a fantasy line. I didn't walk the wrong path maybe a couple of times. Stepping through, I hope to see windows and green leaves. Freedom of speech, sunshine, rhythm up under my feet. Is it a dream? I check the clock for times like this. People around you can't understand what it means to exist. So make up.
Welcome to Beyond the Book, a podcast that jumps into the stories of expert individuals within their respective fields, from the world of academia, health and medicine, artistry, entertainment, business, entrepreneurship, and beyond. We hope you enjoy the guests as they courageously come to open and share a chapter with us. Maybe that wisdom, lesson, or experience can provide some perspective upon your own story as we look to soar across the pages of life. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification bell to refrain from missing any of our content. Also, if you are watching us on Instagram, please hit the follow button. Before I introduce my next guest, he earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science from Elmhurst University. He then received his Master of Education in Educational Leadership and Administration from Concordia University. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. He later went on to receive his doctorate in Educational Leadership and Administration from National Louis University and was nominated for Dissertation of the Year. David is an extraordinary educator with over 20 years of commitment, a Harvard Urban School Leader Certificate holder, a leader who was asked to come back to CICS Wrightwood to positively and genuinely impact the lives of staff and students once again, improving teacher and retention and student academic achievement. A principal, a leader, and a mentor of mine, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Lewis.
Morning. Good afternoon. Good. How are you this afternoon?
Pretty good.
Good.
So really quickly, before we continue, a couple days ago, we had dinner.
Yes, we did.
And one of the main things that I understood about you initially is this guy is straight business. He's focused and a man of high integrity. I want to know how you became that man from the beginnings. How did you grow up? What was your background?
Well, I think that integrity has always been a part of my life. I grew up in Chicago. My parents are both from the South, grew up on the South side of Chicago, initially in Inglewood, 65th and Carpenter. Then we moved to the South Shore area. My parents were both people who instilled in their children, my brother, my sister, and myself, that you have to be responsible. You have to take care of who you are, take care of your family. Your family is all you have. I grew up in that mentality where what happens in our house stays in the house. So everybody had a role, everybody had a responsibility, and you had nothing but your name. The only thing that you could protect was your name. I can remember my dad telling me, you can sell drugs, you can do whatever you want to do. They can come and take that from you. They can take all your money from you, but they can't take your good name from you. And you build that through your character and how you interact with other people. So that's something that I grew up with, and it was instilled in me.
Did you have both of your parents growing up?
Yes, both of them in the house.
Okay. How was that experience?
I didn't know anything any different because they were both there. I mean, my mother and father both worked. Mm-hmm. So I came from a very middle class family. They both worked. They went to work every day. I started working at the age of 12. Had to get a summer job. Everybody had to pay bills. Everybody had to work. I remember when I first got my first summer job, whatever I made had to bring it home and contribute to some bill. Everybody had to pay a part to be in the family. Everybody was contributing to the well-being and welfare of the family. So I didn't know anything different than having two parents in the house.
I asked you how was that experience because we always hear about the single parent household
mm-hmm.
and what didn't go right. And for me, getting the story out, making sure that people understand having a solid foundation does mean something. I understand We have so many stories, and it's been proven, okay, it's not everything, but it does mean a lot. Take me through your time as a, through adolescence. You grow up, both your parents, they solidified values in you that you still hold today. How was your experience from grammar school going into high school?
That's interesting. We talk about values, what parents instill in you. I think back to growing up. My parents had roles, of course. They were both breadwinners. No one was a disciplinarian versus the other. My mother was not the disciplinarian versus my father. If something had to be taken care of, they both took care of it. I grew up in the, belief that, not belief, but the practice in the neighborhood where my folks would tell people, if he does something and you see it, you discipline him where he is. You take care of it, then let us know, and then we'll deal with it then. So going to school, I always had the mentality that somebody was watching me because the neighbors were watching, the people in the neighborhood were watching. So going to elementary school, walking to school every day, people seeing you come and go, going to high school, people watching you come and go. So I always felt like I had a community of people who were surrounding me and looking out for me and seeing what was going on. In terms of my belief and my actions in school, in elementary school, I had fun. I had fun at school. I had fun in high school. I think in our conversations, I was going through some of your questions. I got the full benefit of everything that happened in school. I was a strong student. I got a full ride to my first college, and that was a disappointment because I got accepted to college in my junior year. And when I went back my senior year, I felt like, okay, I don't have to do this. I'm in, I'm out. And I failed my first class my senior year in high school and had to go to summer school, which was a disappointment to me because I got, full of myself.
That's interesting. I have a scenario that's similar to that, that I had to experience in high school as well. What do you think that experience taught you? Because right now, as I'm hearing you talk, you're well-spoken. Everyone knows you come correct with results. Smart man. What did that situation teach you about yourself specifically?
In retrospect, as I reflect on it, it taught me that you can't get caught up in the moment. You have to look beyond the moment and see the big picture. Because I went back my senior year after being admitted my junior year and said, you know what, I got in, I got a high school to go. I got a college to go to. Nothing else you can do for me in this school. I'm out. When I graduate, I'm already in. So I felt like I didn't have to do what I needed to do. But it taught me that you have to look at the big picture and look beyond the moment. I was living in the moment and not seeing what the big picture was. When I was in high school and I was driving my senior year, I thought I was all of that. I would call the office and say, you know what, I'm running late today. I'll be there late. I thought I was grown. I thought I had it made. But so I understand kids when they think they're adults and they have their way, but they don't see that you've got to look beyond the moment. And that's what it taught me. Look beyond this moment and think about the big picture.
Big picture. So, okay, so you high school, you finish up, you had to go to summer school, but correct. You go.
That wasn't an option. My folks were like, you can get out of here.
Right.
Man, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. So they're like, look, we done paid this money.
Yeah. I attended Providence St. Mel, so same thing. They were paying, that tuition for me every month.
Yeah.
Every month. So you graduate high school diploma, you go on to college.
Yes.
What did you attend? I read it down, but
I went to Cornell.
Okay, so Cornell is
got a free ride.
Okay, talk about it, right? Tell me how that experience was like.
It was exhilarating. And I say exhilarating because I was away from home. I was away from everything that I knew. I got to be my own person. When I say my own person, I wasn't under my parents anymore. I wasn't under the light of my brother and sister. I'm the youngest of three, so it was always, your sister did this, your brother did this, and everybody in my family went to Alcorn in Mississippi. My entire family, my folks graduated from Alcorn, my aunts, my uncles. So everybody went to Alcorn. I'm the first one who didn't go to a HBCU. So going to a PWI was exhilarating. It was like, wow, this is a different world for me. I learned things I didn't know. When I was in high school, I attended a very diverse high school, but going to college was a whole different ballgame.
Now, we know a lot of colleges are primarily white anyway, so with that experience, you go from diversity to an institution that's majority white.
Majority, yes.
Walk me through how you felt that first year on campus looking to, stamp your name in a place where you're extremely unfamiliar?
First semester, I was trying to find out who the players were and what made them different from me, what made them think they were different than I was, because academically we were on the same page, but they had different experiences. They had different privileges that I may not have not experienced. I can remember a conversation with a guy in my dorm struggling about having to iron a shirt. I'm like, what's the big deal, man? I iron my shirts every day. So our woman irons our shirts on Wednesdays, irons our clothes on Wednesdays. Our woman. I'm that woman. My mother doesn't do my shirts. I've been doing my own laundry since I was in 6th grade. We washed our uniform shirts, got our uniform together, but that whole thing, and I learned that people live different lives than I lived. So it was eye-opening to see that while I was academically as bright, I didn't have the same experience and exposures that they had. So that's one of the things that kind of lit a fire in me as an educator. In my schools and every place I've been, I've tried to make sure that my children and the children I teach have the same exposures as those students who are different than them.
What's some advice you can give to someone going through their first year of undergrad, male or female, saying, hey, you know what? As you walk this journey, your first year, you're looking to finish out for your first 4 years. What's some advice that you can give to them?
Stay rooted in who you are. Stay rooted in your family and your values. When I say your family and your values, don't try to assimilate and be something that you're not, because at the end of the day, you have to come back to who you are. I was fortunate. I had a strong faith. I grew up in the church, so having a faith-based belief helped me. And at the end of the day, trying a different simulation. You and I had a conversation about what I've told my kids, you have to come back to that. You have to know who you are. So stay true to who you are and understand who you are. And that's the advice I would give them. And it takes time to kind of do some soul searching to understand, what do you want to be and who do you want to be?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. So this isn't on the script, but talk to me about how was it in regards to your fraternity experience? Now, the college experience, please. I attended Millikan University. I did not pledge. I say that I wish I did. I wish I would have had that experience. I didn't. I also feel as though I may have missed out on some fun. I feel like, networking is huge. On campus, you're pledging and then, standing tall within that community, within that culture. What was that like and how were you received to the general population there?
I'm not a poster child for Alpha, but I'll talk to you about Alpha.
Okay.
Undergrad, as a college student, fraternity life was phenomenal for me. I partied, I traveled, I met some friends who are my friends today, and I've been an Alpha for over 4 decades. So for me, it was an opportunity to enjoy college, enjoy the brotherhood, get around, go to conventions. But as I went through the process and took it seriously, because I went through the process during a time when there weren't a lot of rules around the process, but Alpha for me was a commitment for life. I've been active for over 4 decades consistently. I saw the benefit of what it did for Black men, what it did for our reputation and our appearances on campus. People looked up to us because we were not just promoting, stepping and partying, but we were doing community service. We were doing mentoring. We were bringing high school students to campus and tutoring them. So we were engaged even as young men in making sure that other young men saw who we were and what we did so they would want to do the same thing. The process is always about making sure that other people see who you are, because we're recruiting. We don't say we're recruiting, but we're recruiting, but this through our images, through the image we put out there. We want to make sure guys see that, this is something I want to be. And I think even as being a principal, and as an elementary school principal, I've had over 12 boys who become alpha men because of their opportunity to see me and see the brothers come into our school and participate in our school.
Have you always wanted to be an educator?
No. I wanted to go to law school. Passed LSAT. I didn't have the money to go to law school. So education was my next opportunity.
What do you think, for your journey specifically, what helped guide you into becoming an educator and discovering that passion?
When I was at Elmhurst, there were not a lot of students of color on campus. My part-time job or my student work-study job was in the admission office. After graduation, I got a job in the admissions office as a minority recruitment counselor, one of the first persons to do that. And I would sit and listen to the admission team talk about how students of color were not prepared to come to the institution, how they didn't have the skills, they didn't have the ACT scores, they couldn't write. And I said, you know what? I want to do something to get ahead of this game. So I went into education, went into teaching, so I could make sure that students of color were prepared to be equipped to go to the universities that they wanted to go to the high schools that they wanted to go to. I never attended a Chicago public school, so I think that my education was privileged because I went to Catholic school. I never had anyone tell me that I didn't know what I needed to know academically. So I started teaching in Chicago public schools and working in a school at the time that was in the hood, 44th and Evans, Carter G. Woodson, before it became a charter school. 3 project buildings right in front of the school. All my kids came from the same place. Taught 8th grade science. The average age of my students was 16. We're talking about in the 80s before social promotion. And I wanted to make sure that they had those opportunities that I didn't have, and they would be able to have choices.
Yeah, the power of choice, I think, is huge in education. I think having the power of choice is monumental for me throughout my journey and just life in general. And I believe that making sure that other students, other people can have that same. But
some people, those, and I only have to use those terms because I don't use that in my building. The students that I taught didn't know they had choices. They didn't know they had choices. When I was teaching at Woodson, we can look out the window and see Sears Tower, or what is it called now?
Willis Tower.
Willis Tower. We could see Sears Tower, but they'd never been downtown. They could look out the window and see downtown, but they'd never been downtown. We're talking about from 44th and Cottage Grove. You can see it, but you don't think you can obtain it. So you have to teach what choice is. You have to ask people, what do you want to do? And think about, those are hard questions we have to ask people. What is it that you want to do? Everybody's not going to be a Michael Jordan. Everybody's not going to be a Walter Payton. What's your plan B?
Do you think that education is the most important thing for young people in underrepresented communities to obtain?
I think, yes. I think education is one of the most important things for them to obtain, but I think the process of education is what's important. Education is not just about facts. It's about being able to think. It's about being able to understand that you have to analyze things. You have to be able to look at the world around you and see how you fit into it. It's about building character. Education, I think sometimes students, young people think that education is about learning facts. It's more than learning facts. It's about learning, how to navigate those facts. Yeah. How to navigate life.
I would agree. I would agree with that. And if I'm a young, let's take me for example. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a community in the Austin area, in the west side of Chicago. Didn't have a lot, but I was able to at least get to school. I seen both of my parents most of the time, and that was solid enough for me to at least make a way for myself. Let's say an individual who's, I don't want to go to school because I believe that it's not for me. I believe that I'm not in a condition where I feel like I'm able to thrive. I don't feel good. Maybe I don't have the necessary resources that I need each day. What do you tell a student, a young man, a young girl who is trying to figure it out? Because for me, even now, I still search for answers, and a lot of people searching for those same answers. What encouragement can we provide to them to say, hey, you know what, you're going down the right path, and education should be possibly, like you spoke on, be a primary within your life?
Sure. Because I've been in the game for a while, I have, lots of students who've come across my path. And I think back to one of the students in my early years of teaching. We used to do a thing in 8th grade, great expectations. What do you want to be? What are you going to do when you get out of 8th grade? When you grow up, what are you going to be? One of my students told me, and it was just blew my mind. He said, I want to be a bus driver. He said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be a bus driver because we're going to always need transportation. I want a steady job that's going to provide for me and my family and take care of us. That's education. When you realize that I don't have to be what everybody else wants me to be or what they want to be. I don't have to judge myself based on other people's dreams. He was educated because he knew what he wanted to do to be successful. He internalized that this will make me successful. So my advice would be figure out, and I keep saying the same, but figure out who you are and what you want to do. And don't judge yourself based on somebody else. Your story is not somebody else's story.
Let's say if I'm a teacher, switching gears just a little bit, if I have if I'm a teacher and I'm looking to give the best service to my students and regarding certain teaching methodologies, specific pedagogy for our teachers, what are some nuggets that they would need to make sure that they are well equipped when it comes to teaching a diverse group of students in general, if I'm a first-year teacher?
Well, as a first-year teacher, you may not know what the problem is at home. So you made an assumption that they would know. So that's one of the things that I would attack. First of all, don't make assumptions. When I have a first-year teachers come into my building, or first-year teachers to the school,
right?
They may not be first-year teachers. I try to do an immersion into the school community. We tour the community. You need to know what the community looks like. You need to know what the student population looks like. Part of my practice as a school leader is I don't allow my teachers I ask them for the first 2 to 4 weeks of school to have unit 0, which means it's not an instructional unit, but you spend that first month learning the population that's in front of you, building relationships, building character, doing interviews with students and family, doing circles in the morning to find out who your children are, because that way you will be able to address them and get success out of them. You'll have a better understanding. If you go in on day one as a new teacher thinking, I'm going to teach this whole unit and teach this whole book and boom, 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 here we go, and don't know who's in front of you, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You need to understand the people you teach. And I ask the hard questions in interviews, and my staff teases me. If, I serve students who are 98% African-American, 2% Latino, and I ask you, have you had any experiences with African-American children? And if you haven't, then that's a problem. So I don't need any missionaries who are coming in to save the world. I need people coming in to work with who we have and make sure they're successful. And anybody can do that from any race, but you have to come with the right mindset to do that.
That's a good point. Why do you think there's a drop-off in student academic achievement once, let's say, if students go out to spring break, they come back, or Christmas break, come back, and there seems to be a drop in their academic achievement?
I think partially because what was the deal with spring break? They come back after spring break, we're in test mode, and we start teaching to the test or teaching for the test. And we haven't addressed what are we going to do. We, meaning educators, address what are we going to do to keep them engaged. So we're not assessing what they do for the test prep. So it may not be a drop-off, but we don't have the data to say that there isn't a drop-off, because all we're doing is teaching for test prep after spring break. And then after that's done, the year's a wrap. And the kids know it's a wrap.
Yeah. Do you think that students are, this is a great segue. Do you believe that standardized tests are, I think that fair may be the wrong word, but do you think that standardized tests are essential for students to show how well they've, retained or learned the material that they're given? Because a lot of tests, let's say NWEA, or I've also worked with FastBridge, they give us the baseline of how a student is performing, but it's also one data point. I know that we do have confidence in it, but should we solely rely on it to show us how well the student is retaining information or how smart they are, or if they're able to move on to the next grade?
I don't think tests should be used to determine if somebody's able to move on to the next grade. I think there needs to be a combination of assessment. There needs to be a combination of grades. There needs to be a combination of a lot of different things. I've always said that academics are not a true assessments of one's ability. And that's why we have, formative assessments in classrooms where we're listening to students. We're doing, project-based learning so we can get a chance to see what they know, having conversations, asking them to help me understand your thinking. There's a flip side to that. You may be a great tester, someone who tests very well, but getting D's.
Right.
Because you're bored. Or you may be someone who gets A's, straight A's, but can't take the test. So where do we find out where that gap is? So there are multiple ways to find out what people know and how well they're able to adapt or show their learning abilities in other ways.
Yeah. Who was the most significant person in your life who essentially had a phenomenal impact on your life?
Hard question. You always want to say your parents or your grandparents. But there were two versions of a teacher.
Okay.
The first one was a Sunday school teacher. Two things have always stuck with me that have been my North Star. Our Bible verses. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. I can do anything that I want to do. And I learned that very early on. And the second was study to show thyself approved. When you know what you know it. And nobody can take that from you. And so a Sunday school teacher was one. The second was a teacher I had in high school. My senior year, I was able to take a college literature course. We had a process in high school where we took a college course and got college credit for it. I went to a Catholic school, so it was my first lay teacher, Dr. Bernard Rogers, who taught, senior literature. We read some great books. We engaged in discussion, Socratic method, and just talked about things. And just to have the opportunity to be able to think and process and share thoughts, that was important to me. And I always utilize that skill in my classroom to allow people to tell me what their thoughts and feelings were versus me being the person, right? I'm going to do all the talking. Tell me what you think. Help me understand who you are. And if I have a better understanding of who you are, I have a better understanding of how to move you forward.
We're in Women's History Month.
Mm-hmm.
From your perspective, and throughout the time that you've been inside of education, how have women had an impact on education?
Well, I think women are the backbone of education. Education is predominantly a woman's field. Women are the backbone of education. I believe and I know that women that I've worked with and women who have helped found education have been significant and laid the groundwork for the work that we do. I think, even in Chicago locally, Barbara Sizemore, first woman to lead a public school district, the first Black dean of DePaul University's Department of Education, Dr. Carol Lee, who wrote lots of books on pedagogy, Mary McLeod Bethune, who went into HBCUs and taught them how to survive. So women have been the foundation and bedrock of education for years. And I think that, even in Chicago and nationally, women have been significant in providing the nurturing and the strength that's needed in buildings for children to succeed.
Before I go here, actually, I do want to say a lot of women within education, I would agree, have been the backbone of education. Mm-hmm. And it's been primarily when I was in grammar school especially, mm-hmm. I had primarily women teachers. My preschool teacher was a woman. So those things to me always stuck out, and I feel there's a familiarity component there for sure. What are your thoughts on AI as artificial intelligence sweeps in? It's taking over a lot of different things. What are your thoughts there? And do you think that it's doing a disservice to students, whether they are in elementary or post-secondary or high school?
I think the use of it can do a disservice. I think that AI is a great tool that can supplement learning, can help us understand data quickly. It can help teachers lesson plan. It can help them get a grasp on where students may be. So to that end, as a supplement, I think AI is a wonderful tool. I think the disservice that AI could potentially do is take away the value of the humanizing of education. That it takes away the personalization of getting to know who your child is, the personalization of teaching. Teaching is not go sign on to a device and get the information. Where's the sharing of information? Where is the talking? Where is the relationship building? So why it's transformative, it could take away the human touch.
I think that walking to the library, walking to, the teacher to find out one answer, I think that has been eradicated because of AI. I mean, Google was the start, but this AI has just taken it another level. You can literally ask it to push out lesson plans and it'll do it.
Push out a lesson plan. I heard you say how to plan my day. Nobody can tell me how to plan my day.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. If you put the thought into typing out what your schedule is for the day and plan this for me, you've done the hard work yourself. So I think AI becomes a crutch, or can become a crutch for people. It takes away the process of you thinking and you doing the heavy lifting and you doing the work.
What's one thing you've believed that you've manifested, and how were you able to do that?
I think I've manifested my journey. I think I have looked at what I want to do and where I want to go, and I've spoken my truth, made it happen. And that's what I've manifested. I've said who I am, what I want to do, and I've worked to make that happen. I've changed the trajectory of other people's lives, had impact. I've been transformative. So yeah, I've manifested my journey.
Within your journey, I heard you speak about summer school. Was there anything else after that within your journey you said, you know what, this is hard, this is difficult. Honestly, I'm angry about it, but I'm still able to move forward despite that, and gave you motivation to keep going?
Sure. And I'll, make it clear. Go back to, I can do all things. I can do whatever I want to do because I am that person. Nobody can tell me what I can't do, because I believe that. When I think about education and my role, I get angry when I hear people talk about students of color and what they can't do and can't achieve. I led with the work of everybody I work with, a level 1+ school for years. My students had opportunities and choices to go wherever they wanted to go. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're electricians, they're engineers. So I've manifested my journey through other people by saying, you know what, because I can do this, you can do whatever you want to do.
Students, young people, young guys who are right now wasting time. They believe that they have tons of time to get things together. They believe that they may not need education, and they have all day to make a decision about what they want to do. What can you say to those people who are just wasting a little bit of, too much time doing what they need to do and thinking that life will be forever?
Well, I try to put a spin on it. I don't want to say wasting time.
Okay.
We're not focused. I'm going to say you're not focused right now. I try to help them find focus, and I've had to change my mindset and change how I view things. Success looks different for everybody. And education could look different from someone. I try to help people focus on what they need to do, provide a timeline for where they want to be, and model that timeline for them. In my office, I have a vision chart, a vision board for the year. What does this year's vision look like? How are we checking these boxes? And I sit down with those students who are not as focused and talk about, hey, where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Let's get there. Like the conversation I had with you. What's your problem? What's the holdup?
Right. Right.
Let's move the dial.
Right.
So help people to refocus is what I would tell them. Focus. Just focus. I don't want to say you're wasting time, because you may get there, just maybe not at the same time. I want you to get there, but you'll get there.
What's some sound advice you can give for Black and brown students who are not only looking to get through school and education, but get through life? I ask that because you've seen a lot of different people, especially from the communities you've been involved with, and I'm sure you've given some advice to students. What's some advice that you can give to those students who are essentially, just like us growing up in those same communities?
I would say to students who are trying to find their way or survive, I would give the advice that align yourself or find people who are just like you. Means sometimes you may have to put down your device, put down your phone, and have a meaningful conversation. Go back to some of the old adages and things, eagles soar, find other eagles. Don't run with people who aren't like you. Find people who are wanting to do the same things that you do. But take time to get to know who those people are, not just through texting and engaging in social media, but put down your phone and have a conversation to find out who your real relationships are, who your real community is. Who are those people who are supporting you and how can they support you? I do a lot of work with teaching students, male and females, how to network and how to build relationships with people who can help you get where you want to get versus just, I can't do it. Find somebody, tap into those people, tap into people who can help you get where you want to get.
As a school leader, are there any days where you're like, you know what, I'm not sure if this job is for me. I'm not sure how much longer I want to do this. I believe I may want to transition into something else tomorrow.
So yeah, I'm a big movie person, and I say this all the time. There's a line from Antoine Fisher: "Who cries for the little boy who cries inside of me?" So yeah, I feel that way a lot of days. The thing that distresses me the most and makes me say this is not for me when I have to deal with parents, young parents who come to school and want to fight and want to argue and want to bring their battles to the school and do this in front of kids who are not being respectful to themselves, being respectful to their children, being respectful to our race and our culture. That distresses me because that's not who we are. And we can be better than that. Those are the days when I say, you know what, this may not be for me because somewhere along the line, we've dropped the ball. And I get it. They're not mad at me. They're mad at the situation. So education may not have been what they wanted to get, but I need to make sure their kids are getting a better or different educational experience than they got.
Yeah. What do you say and with that point, how do you envision your schooling environment, or what sort of a foundation do you lay out, and what do you expect of your school environment, and how do you expect your staff and students to conduct themselves? If I'm the head of a school, what am I looking for? Because representation is huge, and if you work at something, it probably doesn't feel good also that you have parents or people who aren't looking to uphold your expectation come in and try to disturb the culture and climate of the institution.
Well, I name it. So every day we do an affirmation at the school that everybody knows the affirmation because they hear it. Everybody at Wrightwood is truly loved and appreciated, is truly valued and appreciated, and great things happen here because of you. We have grade level meetings where we talk about what the expectations are, what you've done well this month, what you haven't done well. It's a lot of parenting for children. And we talk about what mutual respect looks like in the building.
Have everyone on the same accord.
And we model it. We model what mutual respect looks like. I don't raise my voice. I'm not someone who ever raises my voice in the building. I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer. I don't do that. There's a whole thing around, emotional intelligence where all you hear at home is yelling and screaming. You don't come to school to hear that.
What are your thoughts on mental health? And I do want to ask you this. Do you think it's focused? Do you think that do we focus enough on mental health inside of our schools?
I don't think we do. I don't think we focus enough on it. I think it's huge, particularly after the pandemic is huge. That's been a shift in my practice after pandemic, having to focus on not only students' mental health, but teachers' mental health. I do a week ahead message every week, and I talk about, how to protect your peace of mind, how to protect your mental health. And we do professional developments that is focused just on mental health for teachers and saving your soul and saving your practice and networking. To have people come in and do wellness days for teachers that just give them mental breaks. So I think it's important to talk about teachers' mental health, how they can survive, how they can lean on each other, and being able to, as a school leader, to talk about that. I understand that this is something that's important, and know that students are experiencing trauma as well. As we have a thing at our building called Take What You Need. So it's a box or a bag where you take a card, you may get a break, you get 5 minutes of this, you may get a gift card, but you have to focus on it and let people know that you are concerned about it. Because as a school leader, if I don't let my staff know that I'm aware of it and don't care about it, then they won't feel safe.
For me, what I've seen consistently is there's a huge, when we talk about representation and we talk about that interaction between leadership, students, and staff, that staff is a representation of that school leader. And I've been in schools enough to consistently see if staff may have an issue or challenges or difficulty in, fostering that agency, and also looking for their voices to be heard under administrators who simply either do not care or aren't putting in the correct systems for them to be heard.
Mm.
If you could look back on, let's say, yourself in high school and you talking to that young man, what are some things that you would tell him in light of looking toward the future?
If I could talk to my high school self,
Yeah, that guy.
I would tell that guy, stop living in the moment. Stop living in the moment and start thinking about, what's going to happen next. What's not going to happen just today, but what's going to happen tomorrow? What are the consequences for your actions today? The things you do today, what consequences will they have down the line? So I would tell that high school person to just be, and I didn't even know the word at that time, be more reflective. I didn't even know what that meant in high school, to be reflective. I mean, I could, grasp it, but to think about putting it in action, I would tell myself now, if I knew then what I knew now, I would say be more reflective and think about not just living in the moment.
What's most important to you? Inspiration or discipline?
Inspiration. I think if we are inspired, that discipline naturally comes, because you're inspired to want to do whatever it is you want to do. You're inspired to, be well, to treat others right, to engage in different practices, and that brings about discipline. So I think inspiration is more important to me.
Do you believe that students are inspired to learn today? Do you believe that institutions do a good job of motivating or inspiring students to learn and why they should learn? I think that a huge thing when it comes to inspiration is, especially for me, being inspired to learn. I was inspired to play basketball, right? I was inspired to go talk to my friends, to, go grab some McDonald's after school. Inspiration looks different in certain settings. And sometimes if you don't understand why you should be inspired by something, or what the benefit is of you being inspired of that subject, you'll never know. You'll never know until, like you said, someone comes along and tells you certain things that you should know and help you be a bit more serious and also possibly inspired from that.
So I don't think institutions inspire people. I think people inspire people. I think there are teachers who inspire students to learn. I think there are pockets where you get that inspiration. I think that school leaders inspire students to learn. Institutions as a whole, networks may not, because a lot of people are just going through the processes. But I think that when you have someone who is committed to and sees their school or their building as a family and as a unit, like I always tell my students, I spend more waking hours with you than your parents do. We are a family, whether we like it or not, dysfunctional or whatever you want to call it. But as a family, we have to decide that I want you to do well and treat each other differently. So institutions may not necessarily inspire, but I think teachers and individuals inspire kids to learn and help them see their best potential.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal answer. If you could encapsulate education into, I don't know, 5 minutes or less, from the history, present day, the future in which you believe education is headed, what words would you say to describe education? And
Sounds like a doctoral question.
it was on the list.
Yeah, it was.
on the list.
I know it was. So education, as we know, started as, something that's industrial to help people survive and make it through society. I think education has been a process that's been around forever to help people to learn, to survive economically, socially. I think it has been something that has been in place to make sure that we are working as a country in terms of industrialization, that we are teaching people, giving them skills. I think the past of education has been to produce workers, produce a safe environment for people. I think that education has given skills to learn, to think. I think the process of education will always remain the same and be transformational to meet the needs of the current time. One of the things that I see in the future of education is, while it has the same tenets of teaching basic fundamental skills and is transformative, that there has been a lot of successes in education in terms of access. I think we still struggle with equity in education. What are the things that make us, equitable in our practices? We look back at, Brown versus the Board of Education. We may not have the same rules in place, but are we giving everyone the same resources that are needed? Is my school on the south side of Chicago having access to the same dollars and the same materials that a school, let's say, on the North Shore has? So is there equity there? Equity in terms of practices. So while we're making progress, and I think education is progressing, I think there's a lot of work to be done around equity and being culturally relevant in our practices. I can just sum it up in this one thing. I think back to Raphael Warnock made a wonderful speech one time where he said, his little boy came into his room and put his shoes on because he wanted to, be like daddy. He said, but your shoes don't fit. They're too big. He said, you're right. They don't fit. So are we providing the right fit in shoes for every student that we teach so they're not walking in something that doesn't fit for them?
Yeah, it's a great analogy. Do you believe men are doing a great job in education?
Yes, I do. I know men are doing a great job in education. I know that there are not enough men in education. I know that we're underrepresented in education, but I know that when I look at the data and look at the statistics, that particularly in urban schools, we are the ones who are providing that male role model for students who may not have that male role model at home. We're providing that sense of stability in schools. We're providing that sense of calm in school. We're providing that sense of, discussion, less emotional around a lot of things. And I know that, may be a challenge, but I love the fact that the men who I know in education are consistent, are there for the children, are there for the families, and making a difference in their lives. When I was at Wrightwood for my first tenure, my administrative assistant told me that, for many of the students that I teach, I was the only constant in their life. For 8 years, the only constant man in their life for 8 years. So we're providing a constant in places where there may not be a constant. I grew up in a 2-parent family. Many of our students may not. That's not saying that all of our students, come from single parent families, but for a majority who do not, we're providing that constant.
Yeah. Wow. This has been an extremely insightful interview. Before I let you go, I do want to, what I do at the end of each interview, 7 phrases that go beyond the book.
Okay.
So I'm going to say a phrase and you just tell me what comes to mind.
Okay.
Right after that phrase. 7, we're going to start with the first one. Family.
Love.
Power.
Balance.
The past.
The future.
The present.
Next.
The future.
Endless possibilities.
Education.
Changing.
Life.
Who knows? When I think about life and I say who knows, life is, it happens. I don't like the phrase life is lifing, but life is what you make it.
Yeah. Do you think throughout your life, within the unpredictabilities, do you believe that you say that you've manifested your journey? Do you believe within that's a purposeful journey? And do you love where you are, being a leader, being someone of influence, a mentor? Do you believe that you truly love being the person that you are today?
I believe that I'm a work in progress. I believe that I can be a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. So I'm happy with where I am. I'm content, but I think there's more ahead. I don't have a lot of regrets. I don't look at the things that have gone wrong in my life as negatives. I look at them as learning opportunities and experiences. I don't have a lot of regrets. I'm not a negative person. So yeah, I'm content and I'm happy, and I know that there's more ahead.
For you to say that, a person like me who believes that I don't have a lot of time, so I'm constantly thinking about the next thing that I can do and how can I be more purposeful and do things that are more fulfilling. Do you believe I don't have a lot of time, or do you believe that I should slow down, chill, and figure it out a bit longer, or seek out answers that I may or may not have?
I think you need to define what your purpose is in life. I think if you spend, and I'll use me, if I spend all my time just focusing on career and not on what brings balance in my life, I think I've missed out. I think we need to decide, what is it I want to do and how do I balance this with everything else? You can't live your life. I can't live my life singularly focused on just my career. I've got to think about family, think about it and what brings me joy, traveling, reading, engaging with other people. We don't live in a silo. So when you say you don't have enough time for what? You have to decide what that time is. And ultimately, my spirituality says God determines what our time is. We don't. So, what brings you a purpose-driven life? Is it just your career, or is it that balance with everything else? And I want a balanced life that gives me an opportunity to disconnect. I love disconnecting. I love getting closer with myself. I love traveling. I love reading. I love my job. I love the kids I'm with. I can do multiple things. So having time to do all of that is what I focus on.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Lewis, we appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
This is phenomenal. We got to do dinner again. That spot, Mahari's.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a great vibe in there, man. I appreciate the food was good. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we can wrap up. Thank you.